The marble lobby went silent the moment she called me a thief. Not because people believed her. Because they wanted to. Audrey Lang stood 4 feet in front of me in a white blazer, surrounded by security, executives, and employees holding their phones low like they were afraid to admit they were recording. 2 officers had my arms. A clear evidence bag sat on the security desk. Inside were 2 missing server drives. They had been found in my locker. My locker. Level 0. Basement maintenance. The lowest badge in Lang Capital's 47-story tower. Audrey pointed at me with a hand that did not shake. "You're just a thief," she said. "A loser in a torn shirt who thought no one would check." Someone on the mezzanine gasped. Someone else whispered my name. Adam Hollis, the quiet guy from the basement, the single dad who fixed keyboards, reset power strips, unclogged server fans, and never looked anyone important in the eye for longer than necessary. I did not defend myself. I did not tell her the drives were planted. I did not tell her the man standing beside her, Roland Pike, had been stealing from her company for 3 years. I did not tell her that the building she was trying to protect was already mine. I only looked past her, toward the brass elevators. One of them opened. Walter Mason stepped out in a gray suit. He stopped so suddenly that the assistant behind him nearly walked into his back. Walter stared at me in handcuffs like a man seeing a ghost he had promised not to speak to. Audrey never turned around. She was too busy finishing the sentence she thought would end me. "Take him out the front," she said. "Let everyone see what happens to people who steal from my company." Walter's hand moved toward his inside pocket. Then it stopped. "Not yet." That was what his eyes told me. Not yet. So I let them walk me through the lobby, past the employees, past the cameras, past the woman who had no idea I signed every paycheck in that tower. "My name is Adam Hollis. I am 39 years old. I live with my 7-year-old daughter Hazel in a modest brick apartment on the north side of Chicago. Every morning begins before the city finishes waking up. Eggs in a pan, a lunchbox on the counter, a hairbrush beside the sink, 2 ponytails, never too tight. Hazel is serious in the morning. She believes socks should be chosen by mood, cereal should not be soggy, and adults should answer questions the first time because children have schedules too. That morning, before everything happened, she watched me tie her shoes and asked, "Daddy, why don't you wear nice clothes like Mia's dad?" I smiled. "Because Daddy fixes things." "Can't you fix things in nice clothes?" "Not the kind of things I fix." She accepted that. Children trust simple truth better than adults do. I walked her to school, kissed the top of her head, and watched until she disappeared through the doors. Then I rode my bike downtown to Lang Capital. 47 stories of glass, brass, and people who thought money made them tall. My contractor badge said, "Hollis, A, maintenance access, level 0. That was exactly how I wanted it. People tell secrets around invisible men. They complain near janitors. They pass envelopes in elevators. They leave terminals unlocked when the person cleaning the desk looks like he belongs below their concern. For 2 years, I had worked in the basement of Lang Capital. For 2 years, I had watched Roland Pike build a fraud so carefully that even Audrey Lang, the new CEO, could not see it from the top floor. Roland was the chief operating officer. He smiled in meetings. He spoke softly. He called Audrey young lady when he wanted to remind the room that her father was dead and she was still proving herself. Audrey trusted him because her father had trusted him. That was the first mistake. Her second mistake was believing theft always looks desperate. It does not. Sometimes theft wears a tailored suit and approves vendor payments with a clean signature. At 8:20 that morning, Roland framed me. He had 2 enterprise server drives planted in my locker. He called building security. He told Audrey the thief had been found. And Audrey, exhausted, under pressure, and terrified of losing control before the Meridian acquisition closed, believed the easiest story in front of her. A poor maintenance contractor, a missing piece of equipment, a public example. She did not ask why I stood so calmly. She did not ask why I never reached for my phone. She did not ask why Walter Mason, the longest-serving director on her board, went pale when he saw my face. Security took me to the precinct. I sat in a holding room with a metal table and a paper cup of coffee that tasted like burnt dust. 41 minutes later, a sergeant opened the door. "Mr. Hollis," he said, suddenly polite. "You're free to go." "On what grounds?" He looked at the folder in his hand and decided he did not want to know. A call came down. Outside, a black town car waited at the curb. Walter Mason sat in the back seat. I got in. The door closed. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. "You shouldn't have interfered," I said. Walter looked straight ahead. "She was going to put your face on every financial page in Chicago by noon. We agreed you would not reveal me." "I bought you 90 minutes, he said. "That is all." I looked out the window. It was snowing lightly over the loop. 90 minutes is enough." Walter turned toward me. "Are you going back?" "Tomorrow morning." "Same shirt?" "Same shirt." He almost smiled. "She'll come for you again." "I know." The next morning, I walked back into Lang Capital like nothing had happened. Same plaid shirt. Same contractor badge. Same old lunchbox. The receptionist stared at me. The security guard looked away. Nobody stopped me because nobody had filed the right paperwork. Walter had made sure of that. Roland Pike heard I was back before his coffee was cold. That was the first time he became afraid. At 10:47, the trading floor server failed. It happened during the morning auction window. Screens froze. Orders stalled. The IT team panicked inside the server closet like surgeons who had lost the patient on the table. I was walking past with a coil of cable over my shoulder. I stopped. The lead engineer, Doug, looked at me. "What do you want?" I set the cable down. "Rack 7 is not the problem." He frowned. "You are not cleared to touch." I moved past him, sat at an old terminal nobody had used in years, and typed 3 commands. 12 seconds later, the server came back. The trading floor erupted. I stood up. Doug stared at me. "How did you do that?" "Cable management," I said. "Check the ghost route behind Rack 7. Then I picked up my cable and left. 2 floors above, Audrey watched the security footage 3 times. Her head of IT stood in her office, sweating through his collar. "What were those commands?" she asked. Doug swallowed. "Route level recovery commands." "Could a level 0 contractor know them?" "No." "Could you?" He looked at the floor. "No, ma'am." That night, the real crisis hit. The Meridian acquisition was due to close in 4 days. Lang Capital's third-quarter ledger was short $11 million. At first, finance called it a reconciliation issue, then an audit delay, then a vendor classification problem. By midnight, nobody was calling it anything because nobody could find the money. Audrey was on the 47th floor with 3 monitors and no sleep. Roland Pike was pretending to help. And 3 floors underground, I was opening the hidden system I had built before I ever wore a maintenance badge. Lang Capital's official servers told one story. My shadow vault told the real one. Every transaction, every approval chain, every vendor record, every deleted invoice. For 23 months, I had mirrored the company's financial spine. Not to steal it. To prove who was. At 6:58 that evening, my phone rang. Hazel's school. The nurse told me my daughter was crying. A girl in her class had taken her drawing, claimed it as her own, and when Hazel tried to take it back, the paper tore down the middle. I closed my eyes. How bad is she? She's asking for you. On my screen, the vendor trail was finally lining up. If I left, I could be at the school in 20 minutes. If I stayed, I could expose the theft by morning. For the first time in years, the company and my daughter needed me at the same time. I hated that company for making it a choice. I called Walter. Hawthorne Elementary, I said. Nurse's office. Hazel. I'm on my way. Tell her Daddy is fixing something and he'll be home by morning. Walter's voice softened. I'll tell her. I set the phone down. Then I began to work. At 2:04 in the morning, Audrey found me in the basement. She stood in the doorway of the little office nobody knew existed, staring at the 3 monitors in front of me. You don't have access to that, she said. I kept typing. You don't have access to any of this. I still did not look up. I will have you removed from this building again if you do not step away from that keyboard. You have 4 days before Meridian closes, I said. My hands kept moving. Do you want the 11 million back, Ms. Lang, or do you want to keep being right? She did not answer. For once, the CEO of Lang Capital had no prepared line. She pulled out the chair beside me and sat down. For 2 hours, she watched the system her own executives had never shown her. She watched fake vendors open. She watched invoices split. She watched money disappear in pieces too small to scare an audit committee. At 4:18, I turned the center monitor toward her. The 11 million was not missing, I said. It was hiding. She read the screen. 14 vendor accounts. 36 months. $47 million. Every approval carried the same executive signature. Roland Pike. Audrey did not speak for a long time. Then the door opened. Hazel stood there in pajamas, holding her torn drawing and her stuffed rabbit. Walter stood behind her, tired and rumpled. Daddy? I turned. Everything else in the room vanished. She ran to me. I caught her. She buried her face in my shirt. I tried to fix the picture, she whispered. I smoothed the torn paper against my desk. We can fix it, I said. We always can. Audrey watched from 3 feet away, and I think that was the moment she finally understood. I was not the thief. I was not the quiet guy from the basement. I was a father. And I had stayed in the building all night so her company would still exist by morning. At 9 a.m., the board convened. 14 chairs around a polished walnut table. Roland Pike arrived smiling, carrying a folder, ready to lead a vote of no confidence against Audrey. Then I walked in. same plaid shirt, same contractor badge, one laptop under my arm. Roland stood. "Walter, this is absurd. A maintenance contractor does not address the board." I connected my laptop to the projector. The first image appeared. Security footage from the basement locker bay. 2:13 a.m. Roland Pike placing 2 server drives into my locker. The room inhaled as one. The second image appeared. 14 fake vendors. $47 million. Roland's signature? The third was elevator footage. Roland handing a manila envelope to an offshore banking consultant. No one spoke. I looked at him. "I built every server you stole from," I said. "Did you really think I wouldn't notice?" Roland sat down slowly. Audrey stared at me from the side of the table. Not with anger anymore. With shock. With shame. With one question written across her face. "Who are you?" Walter Mason stepped forward. "For the official minutes," he said, "the gentleman at the head of this table is Adam Hollis, principal shareholder of Hollis Mason Holdings, holder of 58% of the voting stock of Lang Capital, and chairman of this board since 2021, in absentia, by written instruction." Silence. Complete silence. Then the rear door opened. 2 federal agents stepped inside. "Mr. Roland Pike," one said, "please stand." Roland did not move at first. Then he stood. The cuffs clicked around his wrists. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just finally, after he was taken out, Audrey stood. Her hands were shaking. "I called him a thief," she said, "in front of the entire company." She looked at me. I was wrong. I gave her one small nod. I did not need her humiliation. I needed her to see clearly. Later, she handed me her resignation. I slid it back across the table. "Sit down, Miss Lang," I said. "Meridian closes in 3 days. I need a CEO, not a martyr." 8 days later, Hazel was drawing on the floor of our apartment when someone knocked. Audrey stood in the hallway with a bakery box and a thin folder. No heels. No perfect blazer. No performance. Just a woman who had finally stopped pretending confidence was the same as wisdom. "I brought lemon pastries," she said. "Hazel mentioned them once." Hazel looked up. "I mention them because they are important." Audrey nodded solemnly. "I understand." The folder contained a new vendor approval policy. 3-tier sign-off. External audit review. No single officer allowed to approve vendor payments alone. I read it. Then I looked at her. "You wrote this yourself?" "Yes." "Good." Hazel walked over with a book about a rabbit and placed it in Audrey's hands. "Read this," she said. "Daddy already did it twice." Audrey looked at me. I shrugged. She has strong governance standards. Audrey sat on the rug. Hazel climbed beside her. And for the first time in 4 years, my apartment did not feel like a place I was only trying to keep together. Later that evening, Hazel handed Audrey a drawing. 3 people stood in front of our brick building. A father in a plaid shirt, a little girl with 2 ponytails, and a woman with blonde hair standing between them, smiling. Audrey held it carefully, like evidence, like forgiveness, like something she did not deserve but had been trusted with anyway. The world thinks power announces itself. A corner office, a title, a suit, a name on the door. But real power does not always enter through the lobby. Sometimes it rides a bike to work, fixes keyboards in the basement, braids a little girl's hair before school, and waits until the thief feels safe enough to show his hands. So if you had seen me that morning, standing in handcuffs while a CEO called me a loser, what would you have believed? Would you have recorded? Would you have laughed? Or would you have wondered why the quietest man in the room was not afraid? Tell me in the comments. Because sometimes the man they drag through the lobby is the one who owns every floor above it.